Hi, I'm Mike. Welcome back to the shop. In this episode, I'm going to have some help from my friend Dick to remove the engine and transmission from the Corvette. I've never removed either of those components from a Corvette before, and I didn't realize before starting how more involved it is because of all the extra brackets and things like that that are required. The Corvette's kind of unique because it's a fiberglass body. The frame is a lot stiffer, and the cross member for the transmission is not removable. So it adds a little bit of complexity to the process. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time showing you how I lifted it out, but I will show you a lot of detail of all the connections and how to disconnect them for the support for the transmission, as well as all the componentry attached to the engine. At the end of the video, I'll attach some of the pages out of the assembly instruction manual, so you have the ability to see the components that you'll need to take care of or take off in order to get the engine and transmission out. Hey, if you like what you're seeing in this video, please subscribe. I really would appreciate it. Thanks. I've decided to remove the engine separate from the transmission, so I'll leave the transmission in place. I do have the transmission blocked on my 4-post lift. I'll raise that up and show you later. But in order to get the engine out, I've got a few connections I've got to take care of first. I've got to disconnect the wiring on the starter. I've got to disconnect the tap for the pressure gauge. I've got to remove or disconnect the engine mounts from the frame on both sides. And then on the driver's side, I've got to, I'm going to disconnect the the power steering pump. I do not want to remove that from the car. For anybody who's dealt with these things, the hydraulic fittings are a pain in the butt and they leak. I've got this one so it doesn't leak, so I don't want to remove it. So I'll just disconnect that. There are two bolts. You can see them right here going into the engine. I'll take those out, and there is also a connection to the frame in the back of the power steering pump that is connected or attached to the engine mount. So I've got 3 bolts there to take care of. And let's see, on the, the big part, to get the transmission out, there are 6 bolts. Let me see. There's one. So there's 4 that I can reach from. There's the second one. There's the third one, and the fourth one is here by the spark plug mount. Sorry, the spark plug wire mount. And so I can reach that one from the top side. The other 2 are below, and I'll have to get those from below. So I don't think there's anything here that's especially magical to have to film it. I prefer not to film it. It's a messy job, so I don't want to mess up my camera. Well, I had some deep thoughts on the water pump. I do that sometimes. Sometimes I think deeply, not very often. These hoses down here that are connected are flexible. So trying to get this off is a pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the power steering pump from the bracket. So these 2 bolts here and this one here, and then I'm going to pull it forward. That should give me enough room to get the engine out. If not, I'll go to plan B, take the thing out. but I really, really don't want to do that. I had to use a cheater bar on one of the bolts between the transmission and the engine block. It's just a jack handle. I couldn't get enough leverage. That worked pretty well, and no damage caused. I've decided to take the fan shroud off for the radiator and the fan on the engine. It'll just give me a little bit more room to maneuver. There are 4 bolts that hold this in place. There are 2 on the bottom, one on each side here and over here. And then there's 2 on the top I've already removed, and those are top dead center. So it's like a triangle in how it's bolted together. So I'll remove these 2 and then take the fan shroud out from up transmission. So we're in the process of removing the transmission. In order to do that, you got to take the drive shaft out first. Then you got to take the transmission out. You disconnect the linkages, and then disconnect the 4 bolts in front that hold the transmission in place. Then you move the transmission backwards and down and out. That ought to be fun. To get the transmission out, you need to remove the drive shaft. You also have to remove the exhaust hanger that is on the cross member, and then the special Corvette transmission bracket. If you don't remove those 2 brackets, you'll have no room to be able to move the tail shaft of the transmission back towards, to the back of the car. So those have to come out. The cross member here, or the cross member bracket, has bolts that go, they've got six bolts, 1 on each of the 2 sides, 2 in the front, and then 2 in the rear. And then, of course, so there's 8 bolts. That is one heck of a bracket. So, unfortunately, the cross member is not removable. So that's part of the benefit of having a fiberglass car. It needs to have that amount of stiffness. So, fun. Another neat feature of the Corvette is that the shifter handle, or the shifter mechanism, is also bolted to the cross member and feeds through that cross member. You can't actually get it out. I can't. There we go. Zooming in. So that bracket right there in the center is attached to the shifter handle, as you can see. Past the exhaust. Well, there's the shifter handle going up into the console. It can't be snaked out, so it just needs to be moved over to the side. There's certainly sufficient room to move the tail shaft out towards the back end at this point. So lots of fun. I recommend you take a look at the A1A Auto removal of the Muncie transmission. That's on a Pontiac Le Mans or some Pontiac, some Poncho. It's a really, really nice video. I can't do a better job than that. So that's my reference point. I'll put the link to that in the video. The other thing that needs to be removed, or at least moved to the side, are the exhaust pipes. In order to make that change, or to be able to move them around, you got to find a joint somewhere in the system, in the exhaust system, that allows you to do that. I found the ones in the back of the tailpipe just before the mufflers were the easiest to disconnect, and I just bungee corded them away from the movement or the workspace. But those need to be moved in order to facilitate the the removal of the transmission. You gotta be able to get enough room to the side to get that out. We're down to the last 4 bolts to remove the transmission. And these are the ones that are in the front of the transmission that connect to the bell housing. There's 2 on each side. So before, if you recall, we've already disconnected the bell housing from the engine, so that's a separate piece. And we've also disconnected the engine mounts, thinking that we'd be able to pull the engine out without the transmission, which was not possible on the Corvette, or not real easy or feasible, whatever you want to call it. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use a beam trolley jack and some blocks of wood that are steady enough to basically hold up the both the engine and the bell housing. So I'll do that before we pull the transmission out. So that should be enough to hold that in place. And then we'll get to the top side and pull the engine. As you can see, I'm not too worried about the bell housing. When that comes off, I'm going to trash it because of all of the broken parts of it. I don't want to put something with less than full integrity back into the car. So it is possible to get the engine out without the transmission, but it ain't easy. So there it is. Transmission's in there. The bell housing was separated already, so we're good to go. Next thing we'll get to is just lowering the transmission. That'll be a lot easier now that we've got a handle in the front. Well, that's a job well done, and I really appreciate my friend Dick coming over, and we spent one afternoon and 2 mornings together figuring out how to get the engine and the transmission out. Dick did a phone a friend a couple times to see if there was advice from a certified Chevy mechanic, and so that helped. In any case, we got the engine out first, and how we did that is we loosened up all the bolts between the bell housing and the engine, and then disconnected everything for the transmission, and all the bolts to the cross member, to the bell housing, and basically separated the transmission from the bell housing from the engine. Pulled the engine first, and then got inside the engine compartment, and instead of trying to bench press the transmission out over our heads, old guys, bad shoulders, not a good combination. So Dick ended up climbing inside the engine compartment and pulled the transmission out through the engine compartment after the engine was out, and we just lifted it over the fender. It was a lot easier, so no problem there. So we're ready to continue the journey of restoring the engine, and we'll have some separate work done on our video content on the transmission, as well as the clutch and flywheel and all that kind of stuff. So got our work cut out for us, but this is going to be fun.